Good morning and good afternoon, everybody. I'm Alexander Kakha, and I will be moderating this discussion today. We are very grateful to International Visegrad Fund for supporting this project. And of course, special thanks to all the respected speakers. Despite significant political disagreements, the Visegrad Group has managed to preserve cooperation in key aspects. Today's discussion is not about idealizing the Visegrad model, but about understanding it realistically. What worked, where it was fragile, and which lessons, if any, might be relevant for Georgia. With that, let me turn to our first question. What is the single most important factor that allowed the Visegrad Group to maintain cooperation despite serious political disagreements?
My name is George Robakidze. I'm the former Georgian diplomat. I resigned 2 years ago due to this very famous events which is going now in Georgia. And I used to be the deputy ambassador in Slovakia, in Bratislava, from 2016 till 2020, 4 years. And plus, I've wrote my PhD on the rise of the populist and radical parties in Visegrad 4. So just to be very brief on your question, the reason of creation of the Visegrad 4 was very simple at the beginning. It was to support this country in their European integration process. That was the declared idea. And to be very frank, at the beginning, a lot of people were thinking that once this goal would be achieved, then this organization will gonna dissolve. But then we observed that this organization prevailed. And the main purpose for existing of this organization was that they realized that even being a member of the European Union, they still need the active cooperation with each other. First of all, to lobby the common interests on the European level. And also there were a lot of other economical and practical dimensions. Unfortunately, this is my personal opinion, and our distinguished guests might argue with me. This cooperation has been diminished a little bit since a couple of years, especially after the rise of the Orban's very populistic movement, and also with the second kind of term of Mr. Fico in Slovakia. I don't know how the Czech Republic will gonna react after the second term of Mr. Babiš in the government, because what we remember from his first term, it was also quite difficult times for the, let's say, the pro-European forces generally. So I'm a little bit skeptical before these forces remain in the power for the more active cooperation between the Visegrad 4 countries. What concerns the Georgia, and also a couple of sentences there, and I will not talk much. The best example for Georgia is that the Visegrad 4 gives the opportunity of cooperation without the institutionalization. And I think this is a good model, especially taking into account the completely different interests of the actors in our region. But once again, with this government in Georgia now, I'm really skeptical about any cooperation around, because we also see that the relationship not only with the European Union has been spoiled, also with the neighbors, especially with Azerbaijan after this transit issue, which happened a couple of weeks ago. So, but the example of the Visegrad could be very useful for Georgia. I will finish here and then give the floor to others. Thank you.
Thank you, George. Mr. István Gyarmati, please.
Thank you very much, and still good morning Thanks very much for the invitation, especially for the Visegrad Fund. Especially for the Visegrad Fund, because the Visegrad Fund is probably the only remaining asset of cooperation within the Visegrad group. If you look at the communique that was issued by the heads of state last week, the only positive example that they were able to mention was the Visegrad Fund. So congratulations to the Visegrad Fund, and I wish a long life, a lot of success. That also means that I would formalize the question a little bit more radically than George. George has been a diplomat until 2 years ago, so he was still diplomatic. I have been a diplomat until 20 years ago, so I can be less diplomatic. My question is there significant cooperation, political cooperation in the first instance, within the Visegrad group? And my answer is no. They still continue to have meetings, regular meetings, show some kind of life, but it's more a declaratory existence of the group than reality. The group is now consisting 2 groups. The first group is Poland alone, and the second group is the rest. But the rest, the remaining 3 countries, are also 3 different groups, because Mr. Orban has a very defined, consistent policy. I'm not discussing the content, I'm just telling how consistent it is. Mr. Fico is more a talk show than doing something. He's talking about a lot of things, he's promising a lot of things, and then in the last moment, in most cases, he bends to the pressure of the European Union. So he is absolutely unreliable. And the third group is Czech Republic. First of all, because we don't know what Prime Minister Babiš will do. He has some very serious constraints. The first constraint is the president, who is one of the best, I think, in Europe. I would say President Petr Pavel is one of the best existing functioning presidents in Europe, definitely in the Visegrad group. And the second constraint is the Czech economy. The Czech economy is so strongly tied to the German economy that whatever and whoever prime minister or whatever in the Czech Republic, their room of maneuver is very, very, very limited. If you look at the other part of the equation, Georgia is extremely difficult to cooperate with at this point. Whoever is, and look at Poland, whoever is at odds with Russia will not be able to cooperate with Georgia. Also, the cooperation on the level which has been very important and very successful, the cooperation of the civil society is and will be increasingly difficult with Georgia, not because of the civil society, but because of the Georgian government's relationship with the Georgian civil society. Every government which is growing authoritarian or even worse hates civil society, and we see already how this current Georgian government is turning against the Georgian civil society. So it is becoming increasingly difficult, but also increasingly necessary. So I think if we are looking what to do with the Georgian civil society, usually the problem is that if cooperation with the civil society is becoming increasingly difficult, or highly esteemed Western partners give up quickly. If you look at NATO, even NATO, I'm a Hungarian, and I experience that NATO is almost openly telling that your country is beyond repair because we don't like your government. Again, I'm not suggesting you should agree or not with the Hungarian government, but if NATO thinks that the Hungarian government is difficult, for me it would mean that they should increase support for the Hungarian civil society. What's happening is the opposite. They say not that the Hungarian government is a problem, but Hungary is a problem. So we ignore Hungary. And that's what will happen with Georgia as well, not only with NATO, but with many. A lot of lip service, much less support for the civil society. So I'm not jumping to the conclusions of the 4 webinars, but I think if we want to suggest something relevant, something important, this is what we should concentrate on, how the West should not give up Georgia, especially not the civil society. On the contrary, should increase its support for the civil society. It's of course difficult for the Visegrad group because some Visegrad countries experience similar problems. Nevertheless, I think what we should concentrate on and what we should suggest is not what our governments want, but what we think is the right thing to do. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Indeed, the support to Georgian civil society was promised, but never actually realized, at least in this scale which was promised. Anyway, Mr. Viktor DANÉK, please.
Thank you very much for the opportunity, and for this event. I'm Viktor DANÉK with the EUROPEUM Institute for European Policy, Prague. Coming back to your original question, I wanted to say, or maybe emphasize, that it very much depends on the perspectives, how you look at V4. If you look at it as a vehicle for projecting power and defending common interests on EU level, then I fully agree with the diagnosis Mr. István did a while back. It's a patient on life support right now. When we look at the past, it worked only in times or occasions where there was such a huge political agenda or topic there in Brussels that would tie those countries together. Such was the issue of migration and the mandatory quotas. When there's no such thing that actually ties those countries together, then there's no reason for V4 platform to function, basically. And that's the state of affairs we are seeing today. We can look at it on more technical level, less political, in the intergovernmental cooperation, where I think the opportunities V4 platform offers are largely unused, especially in the area of investment in infrastructure, for example, cooperation on that matter, and education and others. And then we can look at it also from perspective of cooperation in non-governmental sector. And there I think it's actually a tremendous success story. The International Visegrad Fund that was mentioned, it's a perfect example of that. It's working very successfully for many years, promoting a lot of important activities that would otherwise very likely not be promoted, especially when we see the political developments and shrinking space for NGOs. In big part of V4 countries, it's ever more important now, I think, to have such platform and have some secure funding. So that, I think, it's something that can be actually or serve as an inspiration for other regional cooperations. And coming back to the question of Andrej Babiš's involvement, I think that he definitely would be, or he is even quite vocally interested in reviving V4. He remembers very well the times of this success of V4, if you look at it that way, when V4 commonly was against mandatory quotas on asylum seekers. But there's again, quite strong limit. As long as Poland's Prime Minister is Donald Tusk and Hungary's Prime Minister is Viktor Orban, there will not be any revival of V4 cooperation. It's simple as that, in my view. The disagreements on this Poland-Hungarian side are so strong that it's making it, I think, impossible to expect that this is going to change anytime soon. We of course have to see how the elections in Hungary end up. A little bit later on, there'll be elections in Poland. Things might change, but at this political constellation, it's highly unlikely, I think. When we saw the summit of presidents in Hungary a little while back, it was quite even funny, I would say, how difficult it was for the presidents to find some common topic and they would be actually able to discuss. So I think this is self-explaining in a way. So this is again another limit to the Visegrad cooperation. It's very much dependent on the political constellation on each of the countries, and this is something that needs to be taken into account. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other opinions, comments? If not, we can move to the next question. Kakha GOGOLASHVILI, please.
Well, yes, thank you very much for inviting and for this opportunity. Interesting discussion, of course, and I think that Visegrad 4 group cooperation or experience is very interesting and was especially very interesting at certain stage of our integration with EU for us, for Georgia. And civil society, as we talk about civil society and its role, I think that civil society was first, and different civil society organizations, including myself as well, I was actively also participating in this process for copying or etc. or taking the experience of Visegrad cooperation for 3 aspiring EU membership countries like Georgia, Moldova, and Ukraine. At this stage, when Georgia, Moldova, and Ukraine, all 3 were very active, it was 5-6 years ago, even especially after receiving visa-free in 2017. We've been all very active in order somehow to cooperate and to lobby to somehow to forward the question of the integration of these 3 countries into the EU. And at this stage, we even developed a memorandum, a special memorandum, together with Ukrainian and Moldovan civil society organizations. So acting within the civil society forum, Eastern Partnership Civil Society Forum. And we also asked other countries' civil society like Armenia, Azerbaijan, and Belarus to support our cooperation, to strengthen and to make something special for EU, in EU's Eastern Partnership, to somehow create a segment, a special segment of cooperation with these 3 countries, special cooperation with these 3 countries. So it was somehow resembling to before cooperation, because at the initial stage, as I remember, before was especially, that was even before splitting Czechoslovakia, the idea existed that these 3 countries should have cooperated, but then 4 joined the efforts after splitting Slovakia and on Slovakia and Czechoslovakia. And these countries especially started this cooperation in order to encourage and to coordinate their fight for integrating into European Union. And that was very good experience. They had long list of cooperation fields. I remember there were around 40, if I'm now, but at some point I studied this experience, especially. Not everywhere the cooperation was fruitful, but in many things that at this stage, before they became members of the European Union, they lobbied very much together the issue of focusing EU's interest on these 4 countries and helping them to adopt instruments, to adopt policies, etc., integrating them closer to EU. So in this regards, our cooperation with Moldova and Ukraine was very, very important, and we tried to establish such, to push our governments to establish such format. Finally, the format was established, and the EU recognized it. Official format that was called TRIO, and TRIO was also mentioned in Eastern Partnership documents and agreed by among EUs. So practically we established the format similar to V4, and civil society played an important role in this, I think, really important, because we were pushing, we invented this TRIO format. Actually, the name of TRIO was named by Mr. Kubilius, which is now EU Commissioner, Lithuanian Commissioner to European Commission. But before he named this and supported this, Georgian, Moldovan, and Ukrainian civil society organizations worked intensively, meeting all European leaders and different active politicians, etc., to support this idea. So finally, it was supported and it was created. But now at this stage, I think, as far as Georgia started too much distancing, Georgia at official level started distancing from European integration process, and when cooperation on the official level between Georgian, EU, and Moldovan governments became problematic and practically impossible. Of course, civil society continues cooperation, and very useful in this regard are the formats created by European Union, especially the Eastern Partnership Civil Society Forum, when our 3 delegations frequently coordinate their ideas, their proposals, their suggestions, and very much exchange views, etc. But still difficult to promote anything on this level. But now is another format which is possible to use. I think this is format or South Caucasian format between Georgia, Armenia, Azerbaijan. In this case, the 3 countries can cooperate, can use the experience of Visegrad Group. You asked first the question, what is the value of Visegrad Group now? Of course, after joining European Union, the aim or objective of lobbying somehow their membership in EU doesn't exist more, and it weakened little bit cooperation, not little bit, but importantly weakened cooperation and interaction between the Visegrad 4 group. But still, they are geographically very close. They have many problems not problems, but many fields which are important, like people-to-people contact, like regional cooperation issues, smaller projects of trade, cooperation, cultural exchange, etc. All these can be used and realized within South Caucasian context. So Georgia, Armenia, Azerbaijan, they have different orientations, but still they share same borders. They're members of the Council of Europe. They're European countries, actually, and they could take this. And Georgian civil society, and not only Georgian, but civil societies of all these 3 countries can actively cooperate in studying, learning Visegrad experience in all these fields that I mentioned. So at least the fields which are active now within the Visegrad 4, and try to establish similar type of projects. What is very important is people-to-people contacts, of course, or contacts between journalists, between think tanks, between different type of sectoral NGOs working on environment, for example, cooperation between environmental NGOs, cooperation between NGOs working on small and medium business development, many other things. And the experience of Visegrad Group, which counts already I don't know, around 30 years, right? So it could be successfully adopted, and civil society can play this. I think that civil society in all three countries is quite interested in cooperation. We have many contacts with them as a non-governmental organization, a Georgian Foundation for Strategic and International Studies. And we know by our practice that the cooperation is absolutely possible, especially after Armenia and Azerbaijan reconciliation, which goes on very actively. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kakha. I truly hope Georgian civil society survives this difficult, challenging period, because even, inviting experts to this seminar from Georgia was unexpectedly difficult for us. Many people just didn't react as they see this is something supported by European sponsors. So the situation is not easy in civil society in Georgia. Marzenna GUZ-VETTER, please.
Hello, I'm senior fellow at Visegrad Insight, and I fully agree with Istvan that there is de facto at the moment no chance for any serious political cooperation between the leaders of the Visegrad Four. So this cooperation is de facto not existent, but I think that we should not give up, and there is, in my opinion, really a big chance to strengthen our common heritage in terms of the communist past, of the transformation process. And we could think about creating something like a Visegrad 4 civil society forum, which would give us a stronger say also on the EU level. Why this? It is because of on the basis of my experience in cooperation with the Visegrad Insight in Warsaw. I think there are so many initiatives, seminars, exchanges I already faced within this group, and they are not only productive, but I see that we are culturally, in terms also of our mentality, very close, even closer, as when we participate in seminars with people from Western Europe. And this type of civil society forum, Visegrad 4 Civil Society Forum, would give us also the opportunity to address and to cooperate with countries like Georgia, where we will be in the lead. Working for the European Commission for many years, I have closely followed the Eastern Partnership developments, also the Eastern Partnership Civil Society Forum, and I must say it was not the best experience. It was very formalized. There was not enough money for this. It was mainly driven by Western European experts, and especially it was, the transformation of what was agreed there was not put forward by politicians. Even sometimes politicians did not allow people from the civil society forum of the European Neighborhood Policy to participate in their sittings. So as many projects of this type which are driven by EU institutions or by governments, this was more a closed shop. And in the end, in all EU programs for the Eastern Partnership countries, the smallest amount which was provided was the amount for civil society. There were a lot of meetings, etc., but civil society was always you know, they didn't trust them too much because this is a diplomatic world and people from civil society are often not diplomatic. So for these politicians, for these officials, it was always a bit a risk. I think that I don't know how money from the Visegrad Fund could be used for this, but maybe such an initiative to have maybe not as already a civil society forum, V4 civil society forum, but a sort of exchange, of a platform of exchange as a means to strengthen civil society in the Visegrad 4 countries, because this is always a problem. As a Pole, I would also like to say that according to the latest polls, we have also a right drift towards radicalism, towards nationalism in Poland. So Tusk is still there, but we do not know how things will evolve in the next years. So in my opinion, if we talk here about how to incorporate Georgia, how to reach out to Georgian civil society, I think there are a lot of topics we could, as V4 civil society organizations, propose them in the as regards protecting independent media literacy, a fight with disinformation, the Russian disinformation is very, very strong in all V4 countries, but in Georgia also, and the whole transformational heritage, our experiences in joining the EU, so that we keep contact with those few people still in Georgia who have the courage to fight and to undermine this government policy. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Marzenna. Any other opinions or additions or comments, please?
So my name is Oscar Ragnar Hofmeister. Thank you for including me. I also, similar to Viktor DANÉK, I come from EUROPEUM Institute for European Policy from Prague. I would only like to point out in a nutshell how the format, such as the International Visegrad Fund, also has its limits. And we can also already see this in the past 10 years or maybe a little bit more by the type of applications which were granted funding. And this connects it to the political situation and the political constraints, which emanates from the non-collaboration of the members, actually. So, for example, if we look into what kind of projects were granted by the International Visegrad Fund maybe 15 years ago, or if some of us applied for that and remember, these could be somewhat more political projects which are connected to maybe elections, maybe to freedom of media and something similar, rule of law. Today, that's not really possible. And if we look into what kind of projects are granted, the majority of them, and the organizations as well, are often organizations which deal with folklore, for example, anthropological research, the ones which are dealing with sports and youth inclusion. So the political topics are more in the background of these granted applications. And this also reflects the strained relationship between the 4 countries. So this is definitely something maybe Georgia needs to take into consideration, that if there would be maybe a format which would somehow interconnect the Southern Caucasus and Armenia, Georgia, and Azerbaijan, similarly as the V4 did, ahead of EU accession, because of the shared heritage, because of the very similar socio-political traditions, and so on, it also has to take into consideration these constraints, which can emanate precisely from the very rigid political circumstances which can emerge in between. Because the V4 started to exist because of the shared post-socialist and the shared Habsburg heritage. And it was assumed that this will carry on in the future. The problem is that in the past 15, 20, 25 years, this somehow started to, these countries developed in a different pace, into different directions. And sometimes the political agenda is not, does not allow to have shared visions of the future, which also then translates into the aspirations of civil society.
First of all, our organization, EU Awareness Center, which was recently created in Brussels and unified the mostly the former diplomats, we are actively seeking for the partners, and then therefore I would be very grateful if the participants of the different organizations around here would be interested in cooperation with us, and then we can then later on discuss these issues separately. And just another additional issue, I just would like to agree with what Kakha GOGOLASHVILI said, that when there was the interest and when there was the possibility for integration, Georgia already had this kind of a format with Ukraine and Moldova, something similar what the Visegrad 4 was, and there was the interest there because, as we know, EU prefers to work with the regions rather than the separate countries, like it was like the Baltic states, Visegrad 4, and so on and so on. Unfortunately, in the Georgian, let's say, surrounding, in the South Caucasus, it was not possible at that time because Azerbaijan had different interests. Armenia was at that time totally pro-Russian country. Now the things changed. Armenia turned to Europe. There is the possibility to cooperation with Georgia, but Georgia turned again back to Europe and is facing Russia again. So unless the situation will gonna change, I personally will gonna agree with Kakha that there is no possibility of cooperation what concerns the European integration. But this cooperation must be and should be going on the level of the civil society, on the level of the media, on the level of the business associations. And in that case, we were going to appreciate, I mean, my organization personally will going to appreciate all kind of a cooperation. And the very, very final remark, that's all the time I'm going around in Brussels having meetings. I'm always telling to our European counterparts that the civil society in Georgia needs help now. Unless the civil society will gonna turn in the same situation like it is in Belarus, where there are no active civil societies inside the country and they are only covering the country from outside. So this help from the European Union, from the particular member states are needed now. And we will gonna appreciate any help which we can get. Thank you so much, and then sorry for this interruption.
Thank you very much, Georgi. I should only perhaps suggest one more very brief question, which might be answered in one sentence. What is the one most important lesson Georgia should take from Visegrad experience?
I wanted to thank you, Alexander, for inviting me and Viktor for organizing this inspiring discussion. I'm, so to say, the one who is in academia, not from politics and diplomacy, but somehow, if I may, this is maybe not the right word, representing or coming from civil society in Slovakia, working at the edge of culture and societal reflection. And I would only like to strengthen what Visegrad Insights, my Visegrad Insights colleague said, and also Oscar said. On one hand, it's true that the International Visegrad Fund will be remembered in history of our countries as the most important part of all this Visegrad history. and also most resilient. And it really made a difference in understanding each other. The Visegrad project itself is kind of defiance, just to clarify a little bit, act of defiance, as Martin Butora says, against history, because the history is very asymmetric in the Visegrad countries, because there were times when Hungary was flourishing, but Slovakia as a part of it was not. And however, it is maybe time to speak also about the character of the International Visegrad Fund, the main instrument of every kind of Visegrad collaboration of our common identity, that it is actually, it's run by politicians, it's governed by which is would not be itself a problem. It's governed by the board of ambassadors, but it can start to be a problem in times when you see, like, Oscar already spoke about it, that the number of projects which would not be completely innocent is diminishing with the years, this is just mirroring the situation in the political situation within Visegrad, that it's maybe time to think about another model for the cooperation of civil societies, and that it is the problem of the cooperation, or the questions, the absolute necessity of cooperation of civil societies, which is a must, is that once the funds are simply decided and distributed by politicians, it can be a problem, that maybe it would be time to think about another form, another frame. So thank you once again.
I'm from Metropolitan University Prague. Just very briefly on the question. Well, if there is a lesson to be learned from Visegrad for cooperation, the clashes in the sphere of high politics, like the position vis-à-vis the Ukrainian crisis, vis-à-vis the European Union, and so on, they shall not intersect the cooperation in the sphere of, say, let's say, low politics. By which I mean, if you want to like cooperate in the region, you are inevitably bound to, because of the geopolitical givens of your country. Well, then try to establish, despite the political problems, try to establish trade, economic, intellectual, other contacts with the neighbor countries, and that's it. That's how it can work.
Thank you very much. Pani Magda Jakubowska, please.
I think that for Georgia, it is quite important and relevant to seek to see the experiences of the civil society, the underground civil society, and the fighting one civil society in Visegrad 4. We have great examples, and we also give a lot of support. I know that many of the Georgian organizations are moving to Prague and to Warsaw. So I think it is important that we highlight that, and that there is this mutual help to one another. Also, the taking advantage of independent media and kind of trying to work with them and boosting this those independent outlets that are still there is something that we can really do from Visegrad without huge effort or financial struggle in that sense. So thank you, and that's my idea there.
Thank you very much. I'm really satisfied with this discussion. It was excellent, and all those comments were extremely thoughtful and very concrete. And let me remind, this is just our first event. Our series of seminars will continue. And I'm very much looking forward to seeing you in our future events.